Welcome back to Alp Galip Travels. There are places you have seen in photographs 100 times before you ever stand inside them, and Bibury is exactly one of those places. It has been called the most beautiful village in England, a title the designer William Morris gave it well over a century ago, and the picture of its honey-colored stone cottages has been shared by millions of people who never actually made the journey. But here is what the photos never show you: the Sunday crowds, the parking chaos, the price of a single hour, and the strange quiet feeling that time itself slows down the moment you arrive. I spent just 1 hour in Bibury, and in this guide I will show you everything you need to know before visiting, so you can decide for yourself whether it really lives up to the fairy tale. So what exactly is Bibury, and how did this tiny village in the heart of the Cotswolds become world famous? Bibury sits on the banks of the River Colne, a region of England celebrated for its rolling green countryside and its honey-colored traditional stone architecture. The village owes its fame almost entirely to one street, Arlington Row, a line of steep-roofed cottages built way back in 1380 as a wool store for a nearby monastery. In the 17th century, these buildings were converted into homes for weavers, and today they are the single most photographed cottages in England, so iconic that the image has even appeared inside British passports. The water meadows beside them are called Rack Isle, a name from the days when wool was hung out to dry on racks. This is not a theme park or a museum piece. Real people still live in those cottages, which is something every visitor should remember. But none of that history prepares you for what it actually feels like to arrive, and that is exactly where our day took its first turn. We arrived on day 7 of our UK and Ireland trip, after a morning exploring Bath and then the storybook village of Castlecombe. In the afternoon, we set off once more for another of England's fairy tale villages, and the drive through the Cotswolds had already begun to enchant us. Then we hit our first small problem: a road closure. It cost us time, and it taught us a lesson we should have learned before leaving. If you type your planned arrival time into Google Maps before you travel, you can see any scheduled roadworks announced for the area and plan around them. After about an hour's drive from Castlecombe, we finally reached Bibury, only to meet a second problem, and this one would set the tone for the entire visit. Every official car park in the village was completely full. Just when it looked like we might have to turn around, we were lucky. The locals had opened up some of their dirt fields as overflow parking to cope with the huge demand, and we found a space in one of them. The catch? The price. We paid €12 for parking with no time limit, around 12 times what we had paid at Castlecombe. It is a sharp reminder that Bibury's beauty comes with a real tourist premium, and that arriving early or on a weekday is the smart way to avoid both the crowd and the cost. From that field car park, it was no more than a 10-minute walk into the village, and we stepped through its unique countryside with growing curiosity. The first thing that stopped us in the center was the Swan Hotel, with its perfect riverside position, its walls covered in climbing ivy, and its historic architecture overlooking a lovely resting area by the water. From there, we walked past Bibury Bridge, the village's iconic stone bridge, and then along a wooden footbridge beside the River Colne. What struck me immediately was how many visitors there were, streaming in from every direction, all trying to capture the same views from different angles. Then suddenly there it was, Arlington Row, the iconic image that fills all those postcards, appearing in front of us in perfect form. And that is when I realized the real test of Bibury was not finding the view, it was earning it, so we held back and wandered the village center first. Walking deeper into the village, the shops, cafes, and cottage-style places offering accommodation appeared on our left, while on one side of us stood architecture dripping with history, and on the other, a nature of almost unreal beauty. Near the village hall, with its little souvenir shop tucked underneath, a friendly visitor greeted us warmly. As we moved further in, the human crowd slowly gave way to rows of parked cars lining the road. A short way ahead stood St. Mary's Church. And this is where I learned that its roots reach all the way back to the 9th century, and that it is a Grade I listed historic building. Around the churchyard, we noticed countless ancient striking gravestones dating back centuries, and the walking path through the garden was lined on both sides with roses. Step inside and you feel the calm and the scent of 1,000-year-old stone architecture. And the church's most famous piece is a stained glass window designed roughly 100 years ago. After the church, we followed Cemetery Lane back toward the village's most famous buildings, and the hotels and shops around us looked so perfectly simple that they felt like a film set. The little ivy-covered stone bridge crossing to the other side of the river was packed with visitors holding their phones up to capture the view of Arlington Row. Seeing those honey-colored cottages with their 14th century texture, it was impossible not to feel it. This is a place where time truly seems to stop, where you constantly feel like the lead actor in a movie set in medieval England. The green corridors of nature surrounding the village kept us refreshed even on a very hot day. But as I crossed the bridge and looked at the River Colne from both sides, I realized our time was almost up and happiness slowly turned into a quiet sadness. In that moment, I thought about how much I would love to return one day with someone special and stay at least one night, just to feel this more intensely. I even found myself envying a duck gliding along the river, because even being a duck here feels like a privilege. Back at the busy Bibury Bridge, with traffic and crowds building, we captured our final views before it was time to say goodbye. We had pre-booked Stonehenge tickets for 4 o'clock, so we walked back to our car, a little heartbroken but completely satisfied, and then we drove off through the English countryside toward the final stop of the day. So what does Bibury actually cost? And is it worth the premium? The 12 euros we paid for parking was the single biggest hit, far more than the small fee we had paid that same morning in Castle Combe. On top of that, food and drinks inside the village carry a tourist markup, and a simple snack by the river adds up quickly. If you are a family of 3 or 4, a short afternoon here can quietly climb parking, refreshments, and a souvenir together. The honest way to frame it is not that Bibury is expensive in isolation, but that it charges you for the privilege of the most famous view in the Cotswolds. Budget a little extra, arrive early to skip the priciest overflow parking, and decide in advance whether you want to eat in the village or elsewhere. Looking back, the real mistakes were about expectations, not just logistics. The first was assuming you could have the famous view to yourself. You cannot. The crowds are part of the experience now. The second was treating Bibury as a quick photo stop. 1 hour gave us the sights, but not the feeling, and I left wishing we had planned to stay the night. The third is the timing trap. Arriving midday on a weekend turns a serene village into a queue, so an early weekday visit changes everything. Check for roadworks before you leave. Budget more than you think you will spend, and give the place more time than it looks like it needs. So, is Bibury worth visiting? When you look at both the pros and the cons, the crowds, the cost, the short time you get, Bibury is not perfect, but that is exactly what makes it special. The photos do not lie. It really is that beautiful, yet no photograph can capture what it feels like to breathe the place in. I came for the postcard and left understanding why people say it is the most beautiful village in England. My honest verdict? Come once, arrive early, and if you can, stay for a night. Don't forget to like, comment and share this video, and subscribe to my channel. I'll be waiting for your likes and specific questions in the comments.